Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of The Changed Man by Cat Treadgold, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Part 1, Chapter 1. Jake O'Connell's silver BMW bounced over a pothole in the gravel road. He winced, rubbing a stiff neck. Why not pave the damn thing? He thought. It's not like Joe can't afford it. The rocky road leading to his brother's estate was an apt metaphor for what, most likely, lay ahead. Should Jake have tried to smooth the way for his surprise visit? He hadn't anticipated the first gate, though the extra security was understandable. A gangly, shaggy young man who reminded him of Scooby-Doo's owner, wasn't the character's name Shaggy, asked him if he was here for the wedding. Wonder of wonders, Jake was on the guest list, though he hadn't RSVP'd. Invite or no, his rash decision to surface on the placid pond of his brother's idyllic new life would be about as welcome as toxic algae. Though estranged from his twin for years, Jake had kept abreast of the country music star's retreat from fame, if not fortune. Financially, all the O'Connells were rolling in clover, thanks to their father's patents, the family business, Big Paul's Outfitters, and their grandmother's astute investments. A year after his impressive career as a country music icon had been torpedoed by vocal issues, Joe and Allie had moved here to raise identical twin daughters. Next, Allie's twin brother Liam had essentially risen from the dead and settled in one of the guest cottages. Then the youngest O'Connell and only girl, Teresa, came for a visit and never left. Jake's baby sister had been desperate to escape the clutches of their socialite mother. Jake totally got that. But would marrying Liam, Carrie's worst nightmare, really make her happy? His mother had led him to believe that Liam was essentially a handsome drifter. Finally, strangest of all, their older brother David, a physician with Doctors for Humankind in Africa, had abruptly returned to the States and joined the cult. Or commune. Is there a difference? This afternoon, David would marry Maddie, an actress and daughter of Lori, Duncan's girlfriend. Allie and Liam's birth father, Duncan, had only recently re-entered their lives. Maddie had hooked up with David while performing in a play at Port Townsend's local theater. All pretty damn incestuous. Jake grinned, picturing Stephen King's The Stand, where the few plague survivors are drawn to Boulder, Colorado, to face the final battle of the apocalypse. Like Y2K, maybe. Only 7 months until the year 2000 dawned, with its computer-induced chaos. The way Jake's own life was going, the prospect of an apocalypse didn't scare him as much as it should. Sure, he thought, the peninsula is nice and all, but why is everyone in my family being sucked into Joe's homestead like it's a magical vortex? And what is it with all these twins? It's positively biblical. Thanks to their father's untimely death, when Joe and Jake had been 19, Jake had turned into that guy, the one who trod without question the family-sanctioned path and scheduled everything down to the minute. Not anymore. He might as well have flung all his possessions, including his ID and club cards, off a cliff. Who was he now? He knew who he had been, or had striven to be, the powerful and respected CEO of Big Paul's Outfitters, wine connoisseur, sophisticated man about town. Ha. What's it all about, Alfie? A gruff voice saying in his head. With a dry laugh, it added, talk about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That would be Rory, who talked like Edward G. Robinson in his gangster mode. Soon after his death, his best friend had taken up residence in Jake's head, his irreverent presence eerily audible, the uninvited and unconventional voice of Jake's conscience. Or was it his id? Jake believed psychoanalysis was hooey. So why was he starting to believe in ghosts? What? He said aloud to Rory. You think being CEO of BPO was the be-all and end-all? It was to you. Your mom's got to be so bummed. Thank God he was alone. Anyone overhearing this bizarre conversation with his dead friend would assume he was nuts. Jake would be the first to agree. What makes you think she knows? She's a big shareholder. Yes, he thought, she knows. He was surprised she hadn't confronted him already. Was this the final gate? According to the directions, yes. You had to be buzzed in. He checked his watch. Noon. Lunchtime for the unfashionable. The wedding wasn't until 5. He hadn't thought this through at all. Where would he spend the night? Some B&B, sharing scones and eggs Benedict with couples on romantic getaways. He blew out a disgusted puff of air. He'd prefer a seedy motel. For that, he'd have to drive to Port Angeles or Forks. Would his family welcome him or gape in horror at the ultimate wedding crasher? Guess you're going to find out, Rory said. Allie was standing at the kitchen sink, gazing fondly at her clan as all assembled on the flagstone terrace that overlooked the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Her husband Joe, ever the thoughtful brother, had been determined to avoid a last-minute scramble like on the morning of Teresa's wedding, nearly ruined by a freak storm. Joe and Liam were constructing an African safari tent in the field next to their house, a structure right out of colonial Africa built on a wooden platform with an off-white canvas canopy and lots of flowy drapes. It was an odd addition to their ever-expanding compound and hardly practical in this climate. Port Townsend was cornered by the bay and the Strait of Juan de Fuca, so the ocean breeze made it feel cooler than the thermometer indicated. Temperatures rarely rose above 80, even in August. Being located in the Olympic rain shadow made it drier than Seattle, but May 30th could be on the nippy side. Not today, 70 degrees and nary a wisp of a cloud. Just enough wind to bathe them all in a bracing, salty sea air and the pungent, earthy odors of the mossy forest that surrounded the property. The small gathering of friends and family lolled contentedly on their Adirondack chairs, faces raised skyward like sunflowers. Allie started at the buzzing of the intercom. Who was missing? Becca and Jean-Louise weren't expected until 4. She pushed the button, leaned into the speaker, and said, "Hello?" A brief silence. She was about to alert Joe, worried that the tabloids had breached the first gate, when a male voice replied, yeah, hi." A pause. "This is Jake. Here for the wedding?" At first, Allie was too shocked to reply. Her finger shook as it hovered over the button. Seeing no other option, she buzzed Jake in. Dazed, she drifted out to the terrace. "Joe?" Her husband looked up, instantly wary. She guessed all the blood had drained from her cheeks. The rest of them stared at her, slack-jawed, as if bracing to hear that a loved one had driven off a bridge. "It's not bad news," she rushed to explain. "I'd say just the opposite." Hands raised in supplication, Joe said, "Sweetie, just tell us." "Jake's here." The little bombshell stopped her husband dead in his tracks. She scanned the faces of her family and friends, which registered bewilderment rather than actual dismay. If anyone should feel dismayed, it was Allie. The last time she and Jake had spoken was in the limo coming home from the fundraiser. She had confronted him about his motives, having just learned he was dating her to get back at his brother. Far from apologizing, he had been angry, incensed, really. Well, she had been angry too. Not that she had any right to be. She'd agreed to go out with him only because of his uncanny resemblance to the man she knew as JJ. She hadn't realized they were in fact brothers, fraternal twins, until Joe had resurfaced at the fundraiser. After that, her future husband had blown hot and cold, driving her nuts. Unlike Jake, who had given her the royal treatment, complete with wining and dining, and gifts of expensive clothing. Pulling her back to the present, Joe hooked a reassuring arm around her waist. "Come on, let's freak Jake the hell out by acting like we couldn't be more delighted to see him. He's not here to ruin David's big day. They always got along." Jake was striding down the hill from the parking area. Allie blinked rapidly as if to refocus the picture. This was not the man she recalled. Tanned and buffed, not pallid and male model thin. He looked gorgeous and more like Joe than ever. Same large, soulful brown eyes flecked with gold. Same thick chestnut brown hair, though longer now and slightly unruly. When they met, she would never have described Jake as unruly or even casual. She'd once compared him to a newscaster. Now he looked like a wealthy lady killer who played polo and drove race cars. The cut of his bespoke suit would have scandalized Paul's board of directors. It was too fitted, too au courant, though perfect for his sleek physique. No tie, and his crisp white shirt had enough buttons unfastened to reveal a tanned V of chest. Allie had once read that opening more than 2 buttons was unacceptable in business circles. Smile tentative, Jake hesitated at the edge of the terrace and gave a small beauty queen riding a float wave. Hello, everyone? Carrie rushed forward to embrace him. That was really out of character. The image-conscious, reserved matriarch of the O'Connell clan didn't do hugs or even air kisses. In the right light, you could mistake her for Teresa's sister rather than her mother, only blonder. Thanks to her team of expensive cosmeticians and plastic surgeons, she was youthening like Merlin in The Once and Future King. It had originally seemed that Teresa would go the same way. Now, at Liam's urging, she was practically a nature girl. The platinum blonde chiffon had been replaced with the strawberry blonde curl she was born with, and she actually had a little meat on her bones. A little. She was still as slender as a reed. David was the next to approach Jake, enfolding his brother in a bear hug and urging him onto the terrace. The vampire now had the necessary human permission to cross the threshold. Behave, Allie told herself. He is your brother-in-law. She saw him taking everything in, expression opaque, and tried to see the compound through his eyes. The original structure, the so-called sea captain's house, was a colonial-style mansion built in 1990. It belonged to David and Maddie now. Allie and Joe's newly constructed dream house stood just beyond, a log cabin-style mansion with a ski lodge interior more in tune with Joe's and her tastes. Everyone referred to it as the log palace. The two styles weren't exactly harmonious, and now there was a safari tent for God's sake. Standing among his brothers, Jake appeared to be the runt of the litter. David, the height of their deceased father, 6'5", towered over them all. With his more than rough-hewn features, shock of auburn hair, and stubble of red beard, the guy looked like a distant cousin descendant from Vikings, rather than an Irish Catholic O'Connell. Joe was 6'2", also powerfully built, but more streamlined. He had the same hooked nose and dimpled chin as David, otherwise his appearance was softer and more boyish. His tan skin silky smooth. The kind of spoony good looks that elevated you from just another talented musician to a major country music star. Jake was the refined version, a few inches shorter, more like their mother, an aristocratic nose, less distinctive jawline, and finer boned physique. David's enthusiastic introductions quickly dispelled the chill in the atmosphere. You'd never know there was bad blood between Jake and Joe, a grudge that predated Allie. Could bygones be bygones just like that?